Hello, this is my presentation on labor markets, income, poverty, and economic inequality. First we have demand and supply and the effects on wages. Like all equilibrium prices, the market wage rate is determined through the interaction of supply and demand in the labor market. So supply and demand influences hours, compensation, salary, and benefits. We have a derived demand, which is how economists describe the demand for inputs like labor. So the demand for labor is also dependent upon the demand for the product that the firm is producing. And so effects on the market like economic stress, like the Great Recession, employment was 4 to 5% in the US, and then major businesses failed, so supply and demand both plummeted. This can cause a lot of stress and a lot of effects on the market. And then if wage is growing and productivity is lagging, then that indicates that the supply of labor has outspaced demand, which is a downward pressure on wages. And then an upward pressure on wages is whenever the demand has outspaced or outpaces supply. So impact on unions. So we have the increase of wages for workers at the cost of lower employment, 10% increase in weekly earnings, protects workers, improves job stability. Households are 1.7 times wealthier than non-union households. It protects workers and then reduces inequality, lots of great impacts. And then we have the effects of it imperfect competition on labor markets. So there are two sources of imperfect competition in labor markets. We have the demand side sources and the supply side sources. So no competition is the employees have fewer options, and then the employers offer lower wages, and then this leads into a monopsony, which is when the employer is exploiting its market power. So the monopsony wants to reduce wages. They want to have fewer workers, but as a result, the wages might be lowered and then there's fewer hired. But then if the employers want to hire more, they must raise the wage, which leads into marginal cost of labor. And this is whenever the cost to the firm of hiring one more worker raises. So they have to raise the wages if they want to hire more workers. And then we have the impact of income inequality. So discrimination. This involves the acting on the belief that members of a certain group are inferior or deserve less because of the factors such as race, gender, religion, and then because of this, they lack opportunities, and then it leads to lower levels of qualification and experience. And in this case, when it refers to skill levels, it's talking about education, experience, and expertise. So even if they all have the same skill levels, this is discrimination, and then it can ultimately just lead to unemployment. So businesses that are located in a large minority, if they're refusing to sell to the minorities, then that cuts into their own profits. So they're just damaging their own system there. And then inequality, that impedes growth. It curbs demand in the market, and investment rates go down. It affects productivity, population, economy, health, and it comprises social and political stability. So we have Equal Rights Act for protection against discriminations. We have all of these different ones: 1964 Civil Rights Act, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009, Equal Pay Act of 1963, Civil Rights Act, Age Discrimination in Employment, Rehabilitation Act of 1973. All of these are different ways that the government set in place to protect against inequality and discrimination, like providing recovery to damages in case of unintentional employment discrimination, or protecting people 40 years or of age or older from being discriminated against by age, protecting against unemployment based on disability, and then sex-based wage, so all these great things. And then government policies and safety nets. So the government set these in place, like setting minimum hourly wages so that there is not like an exceedingly low amount that someone is getting paid, and then setting maximum hours of work, and then prohibiting child labor, regulating health and safety regulations and conditions in the workplace, prohibiting discrimination, requiring employers to provide family leave, and then giving advance notice of layoffs, setting limits on the number of immigrant workers, covering workers with unemployment insurance, all of these great things to provide a safety net so that there really is no like inequality or discrimination, and it's also just protecting the lives of others. And then these are my resources, so thank you for watching.